let's talk about Iran. I think the right place to start is actually not with the president's announcement, his on again, off again, hot water,
Will he or
cold
won't he?
water.
Right.
Will he or won't he? Right. Does he love me? Does he not? But actually, with how the war is going, as most folks who are paying attention know, the Israelis have almost complete air dominance, certainly over Western Iran. Now, for people who don't understand why everybody keeps emphasizing that they have dominance over Tehran, the capital, and over one half of the country, the answer is because that is where Iran likes to launch missiles from. If Iran is launching missiles from further away from Israel, the odds of them actually reaching Israel diminish substantially. And if you look, you should see online, there have been a lot of really good charts showing the diminishing number of Iranian missiles that are actually being launched. Two things about that. One, because Israel is not paying attention to Iranian missile sites, Israel is paying attention to what are called transporter erector launchers. That's simple stuff. That's what you put the missile on in order to make it go into the air and reach its target. And if you don't have one of those, you got to carry it, take it by bus, put it in a backpack. It doesn't work as well. So that is what's going on there. Israel is striking Iran right now. There's big explosion at a secure facility in Tehran, according to one of the guys who I follow, and some pretty big fiery pictures. And the Iranians hit a hospital yesterday in Israel. So, hey, excellent work on the part of the Islamic Republic, really making all of their citizens proud that they were able to kill a bunch of people in a hospital. What do you think? Or are you frozen? And am I frozen? I have no idea. There's Elise. She's frozen. I'm going to just keep talking. Oh, there you are, baby. Did you hear me?
Yeah,
I
I
brought
did.
up
I did.
Soroka. What do you think about the fact that they hit Soroka Hospital?
I mean, look, it's pretty clear that Israel, I'm not saying Israel is not, there's not collateral damage in the strikes that Israel is hitting. However, they are obviously going towards the nuclear sites, and Iran is not only going towards military sites. I mean, they're going for hospitals, they're going for civilians, they're going for maximum casualty. So would accept. Obviously, look at what's going on in Gaza, they do. But in this particular case, they're going after missile sites and they're going after nuclear sites.
So, what the Iranians are trying to do in hitting civilian sites, in killing the civilians, is that they are trying to get the Israeli population to exercise pressure, to exert pressure on the government in order to get them stopped. And that's not working. In part because the Israelis are really determined on the question of Iran. I think they recognize that this is an existential threat. But when I saw the pictures from Soroka, Palestinian doctor treating Israeli patients, standing there. Oops, guys, I've now lost Elise completely. She'll be back. Let's hope, because this is her connection. There she is. So when I see a Palestinian doctor, he had an IV in, and he was still treating patients. There are Christians, there are Muslims, there are Jews in Soroka Hospital. It's a disgrace. Iran, the regime should be ashamed. Anyhow, what can I
I
say?
do want to say so. I do want to say something though. I am concerned, however, about the defense minister saying that they should kill the supreme leader. I'm not saying that the supreme leader, wouldn't be better off dead. I'm saying I just think that is a step too far. And I think that not a lot of good could come out of it. I don't think this, and I said this to you, I don't think this is going to be a situation where ding dong, the witch is dead and everybody does a jig. I think there could be a lot of unforeseen consequences if you kill the supreme leader. And I just don't think that should be the aim. It should be going after the nuclears. They're in for a penny, in for a pound on this war, but it should be just, if they're going after the nuclear program, they should just go after the nuclear program. And I think that's how President Trump feels. And, President Trump is all over the place on whether he wants to get involved today. He said, "Oh, we'll be there and we'll make the decision in 2 weeks." What I asked you earlier is, does that make Iran rush to the table, or does it make Iran rush to, do the breakout and get a bomb? I don't think either one of us know. But President Trump clearly wants to keep everybody guessing. I think I, I'm not, I think he's being responsible in terms of moving assets to the region. I think his rhetoric is, all over the place.
So, I mean, that is the problem with Donald Trump, right? So he basically threatened the life of the supreme leader 3 days ago, and now he's putting all his faith in negotiations. And I agree with you; it's a little bit too much of a swing. I'll say this: I'm not concerned about the Israelis have taken out the top echelons of Iran's leadership. I don't care if they kill the supreme leader, but I do think that the point you make is a correct one, which is yeah, and what's next? I have seen reports, and I feel like they're reasonably reliable from people, in other words, that I trust, who are suggesting that the supreme leader is in his bunker. That in fact, the day-to-day management of the ongoing conflict is in the hands of the IRGC for the non-cognoscenti. That's
That makes
the
sense.
Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It does make sense. Now, the question here, Elise, I think, is what's going to happen in these 2 weeks. So tomorrow, the Iranian foreign minister is meeting with the French, the Brits, and the Germans
The Brits and the Germans.
in Geneva. Yeah, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah. In Geneva, I look, I think they're going to tell them, come to the table, and that they do think. And I mean, look, I've spoken to some folks, you've spoken to some folks. Originally, I didn't think Trump was going to join that. Right? Um, uh, the regime or the nuclear program. Uh, of the nuclear program, but I do think President Trump will now, from what I've talked to people, I think he's ready to strike at Fordo with these bunker buster bombs. Maybe he said 2 weeks because it takes 2 weeks to get them there. I don't think, I don't know how long it would take. They're in Missouri right now, these B-2 bombers. It might take
No,
a few weeks to get there, but
so I don't think we know, Elise. Just to give people a better understanding of this. And sorry, Elise and I are really focusing on our big international news. We're both foreign policy people, so we're not talking about too much domestic stuff this week. So, just so folks understand, the equipment in question that Elise is talking about is something called a massive ordnance penetrator, MOP, MOP. That is 30,000 pounds of big boom. It is
the
what
mother of bombs,
no, it's not the mother. That's the
so-called
Moab.
mom.
It's the mop. It's not the mother. That's the Moab, the mother of all bombs. And that's actually 22,000 pounds. So we've got some serious, serious firepower differences there. Now, just to sort of dive in, because I think people think this is actually interesting, is that the MOP, the Master Ordnance Penetrator, which is the thing that people believe is going to be decisive in taking out Iran's massive, massive enrichment facility at Fordow, needs to be carried on a B-2 bomber, a so-called Spirit bomber. We actually had a lot of them in the region at Diego Garcia, which is our base in the Red Sea. They don't appear to be there anymore, but we're not certain. If not, however, they need to come from the United States, as Elise said. They can make that trip. Uh, they can make that trip without stopping, just refueling in the air. But again, this is sort of what's hangs in the balance. And you are exactly right, Elise. The 2 weeks may well be about the carrier battle group that's on its way in. It may well be about getting our folks out of harm's way. It may well be about the B-2 Spirit and the MOP. But Israel has options. Oh, sweetie, I've lost you again. Damn it. I don't know what happened.
Until we've been reading that he wants to make sure it's a home run, because you don't want to, if you're going for it, you want to leave any of the Iranian programs
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's exactly right. And I'm sorry, I'm blabbing a ton because Elisa's internet is a little bit unsteady. It happens, and I've been. So, Grace, the answer about options is this. What experts who are much savvier than I am on military questions explain to both Elise and to me is that there is, yes, there is the MOP that we're talking about, not the mother of all bombs, because that's the Moab, but the massive ordnance penetrator that needs to be dropped by probably by a B-2, a stealth bomber. Now, there was a very interesting article. I posted it on at my Substack this morning. If you guys are interested, it's on the Q&A on Iran, and it dives into the question of whether or not the Israelis could modify a C-130, that's a big honking plane, and carry just one of those massive ordnance penetrators and drop it. The Israelis have been doing incredible things, innovative things with American aircraft, with American equipment. And so there's a possibility. This could also be a ground operation. Will that be messy? Yes, it would be messier, but it is also an option for the Israelis. So, yes, they do have options, and they are thinking about this 2 weeks and wondering whether they ought to move.
I do want to talk about though, what happens if, you know, the regime is kind of leaderless? Are you worried about like, or even if it's possible to even be more extreme elements of the regime? Like what happens? Does it create chaos? Does it create instability? Does ISIS come in? I mean, look, I know we want the nuclear program to be finished, but like I'm worried about unintended consequences. Do Americans face terrorist attacks? Like we don't want to live like Israel does. Every time we get on a bus, every time we get on a train, are we going to have the threat of terrorist attacks against Americans? A lot of people are asking that, and it's a reasonable question if we get involved in this war.
So, first of all, it's important for people to understand that we are involved in this war. We
Sure.
have been a target of the Iranians for decades. The Iranians tried to kill Donald Trump. The Iranians are still trying to kill the former Secretary of State and the former National Security Advisor. The Iranians are trying to kill the former Iran negotiator who was trying to get them a deal. So the idea that we are not in a conflict with the Iranians is ridiculous. But I will say this, okay? Right now, Israel has destroyed Hezbollah. They have they have helped usher in a new era in Syria. Hamas is not what it was, to put it gently, to say the least. The Houthis, yes, absolutely are still a threat, but they have stopped targeting US shipping for the moment. So, I I don't want to suggest that everything will be easy peasy, and I also don't want to suggest that there couldn't be something worse after Ayatollah Khamenei, because I think you asked exactly the right question. But the notion that somehow now the Iranians will be mad at us, they have been threatening the United States every hour on the hour since February of 1979 when they took our embassy and all of its occupants hostage when they created the Islamic Republic of Iran.
This is all true. I do think it's a little bit different if the U.S. started striking Iran, but I want to talk about in something I'm writing it. I see some other people writing it too about it, when you look at how Israel changed the Middle East, kind of reshaping the Middle East. Israel is, Iran always want to be the dominant power in the Middle East. The dominant power in the Middle East right now is Israel.
Yeah, you got that right. And that's a huge responsibility. And one of the things that always bugs the crap out of me, you and I talk about this all the time. One of the things that really bugs me is that people like to suggest that supporters of Israel in the United States who, have these ideas about changing regimes, we want to just bring democracy and freedom. Let me just tell you, as a supporter of Israel and as a good neoconservative, Israel does not support the idea of democratizing the Middle East. Israel doesn't want to see regime change in Egypt. They don't want to see regime change in Jordan.
Saudi Arabia.
Not in Saudi Arabia, not even in Iraq, where there's an Iranian ally. The honest to goodness truth is, if we can get rid of this evil regime, if the Iranian people can, or even if we can just neutralize them for a period of time, this is a moment when the region could flourish and we actually could turn our back on them and focus on China and Russia. So,
What I've heard from the region is like the kind of feeling in the region is nod, wink, and duck. Like people do like that the Iranians are being weakened, but they are concerned about what comes next. And when you say that that is a responsibility to be the dominant power, like I hope, you know, Israel is reshaping the Middle East for its own, you know what I mean, security, but I hope it does take that responsibility seriously for the whole region. But I want to talk about Tucker Carlson. Let's, we're
oh,
coming up
can
on.
I say, hey, Elise, can I say one more thing about that? You know, something, if I live in Lebanon, I'm not going to say this out loud, but I am going to thank God the Israelis were there to destroy Hezbollah because Hezbollah has destroyed that beautiful, beautiful country, just as Assad destroyed the beautiful country of Syria, just like the Iranian regime destroyed it. Grace, you're totally right. It is up to the Iranians to make that choice, but it is not easy. Iran is a police state. And I wanted to say one more thing because we got asked a
There's
great.
not really an opposition. There's not really an organized opposition to kind of.
We don't know. If we had said that there was going to be an overthrow of the Assad regime 2 months ago, you and I would have been like, I don't know. But Robert asked a really, I think it was Robert asked a really interesting question. How much of the Israelis degraded the ability of the Iranians to help Russia? And that I don't know the answer to, but it's a great question. I'm going to think about it and I'll put a note up on Substack. Now let's talk about Tucker Carlson.
He really, we talked about this last week. Like, Trump is between a rock and a hard place in his with his base because, the base is very no wars.
About Ukraine.
And we don't want to get involved with Iran. Tucker Carlson, Trump went after him and railed against him, and he kind of freaked out and did a 180, and now he thinks that we should get involved. But I do think that, MAGA is holding Trump to his campaign promises, whether they're right or wrong. Campaign promises, no forever wars. I do think if you get into a war with Iran, it's going to be a protracted conflict. And
So I think Joanne's on the wrong show on Substack. Look, here is what Trump said this morning. Maybe last night. He said, "If my base thinks that Iran should have a nuclear weapon, right? They shouldn't be supporting me because I'm not going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon." I got to say, you know, there is I agree with you about, the back and the forth. I certainly agree with you about Tucker Carlson, as you know all too well. We are in perfect harmony on the question of Tucker Carlson. On the other hand, I will say I really appreciate a little bit of clarity about what we will and will not tolerate. The only issue right now is, as you say, that, it's all of a sudden we're going to bomb you tomorrow. And then, no, no, 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, we'll bomb you. That was a little weird. But I think clarity about what we're expecting from the Iranians is exactly the right approach. We have always lost out in negotiations with them. Democrats negotiating, Republicans negotiating. They are good at that game. And Trump at least has been really clear about this. I just hope he doesn't get weak-kneed. I really do. I really, really do.
we will be writing about this. We will be talking about this. Send us your questions. I'm sorry for the.
At least it's you this time, not me.
Yeah, exactly. So next week, we'll Danielle be
She's waking up, baby.
we'll be with you on the same bat channel. We'll see you next week. Thanks for bearing with us.
Bye, Elise. Drive carefully, guys. Thanks, everybody. Take care.